Welcome to Trash Talk, a podcast by Zero Waste Canada. I'm your host, Alistair McCall. I moved to Canada in 2017 from England, and I've since held a variety of roles in the waste industry, and currently sit on the Zero Waste Canada board. On this podcast, we will dive deep into the world of zero waste and the circular economy, speaking with change makers who are helping to lead us to a more waste-free, sustainable planet. Okay, Trash Talk is back. We have with us here today Jamie Kaminski. Welcome, Jamie. Tell us who you are and your zero waste background.
Excellent. Thanks, Alistair. It's great to be here. So I'll try and shorten the history a little bit. So, long story. I started out at the age of 9, working with my dad, who started a recycling company. I took over that company in 2021 and started to do more policy work. So, I started to work with the Recycling Council of BC on their policy committees. From there, I was kind of getting stuck on the policy in terms of moving policy forward. So, at the time, we were working on EPR, so extended producer responsibility. So everybody knows what that is in BC. Um, that was really starting to become mainstream. It wasn't at the time. It was probably around 2001, 2002, I would say. Um, from there, a good friend of mine had me go to California, where they were having an actual zero waste conference. At the time, I really didn't know much about zero waste, didn't know the group, didn't know the crowd, didn't know what the community was like. He actually probably asked me probably like 10 times. I kept saying no, forget it. He finally dragged me out there. He was like, "Don't pay for it." He's like, "Just come out here. I got your back. I got your hotel. I got everything. Come out here, meet this group." I met them, and my life changed in terms of recycling, looking how I look at recycling, how I look at waste, how I look at everything. It turned out that the work that I was doing in BC was very much in a bubble. I always said it was like a bubble. What I mean by that is there was just something missing. Every time we put together a proposal that would improve recycling or make things better for reduction or reuse, it would get rejected, especially in EPR programs. But when I was in California meeting with the Zero Waste International Alliance at the Zero Waste Conference, everybody understood, everybody got it. We talked a lot around reduction, how to make recycling better. It wasn't just about what bin to put your waste in. So it was just an amazing group. So that's kind of where I started getting into it. That was around 2013, so quite a while later. When I finally started thinking about what I was going to do in terms of recycling, I decided that recycling was great. It's important. You
Mm.
definitely want to manage your resources better, uh, but it's not the silver bullet. It never has been, never will be. You really need to do more than just think about recycling. You have to really look at how you're properly managing your resources. So we set up the nonprofit that you know now, which is Zero Waste Canada,
Yeah,
with a group of people, and we started to work with the Zero Waste International Alliance on actual policies. So that's where we are today.
great. Yeah, maybe give us some background. You mentioned before about how policy was not kind of great at the start of this, but maybe give us like a brief snapshot of how things have changed from when you first started versus now.
Oh, wow. Good question. So, I'll start with the first policy that was developed around zero waste. So, when I came in 2013, even with the Zero Waste International Alliance, there was no policy. There was a definition of zero
Yeah.
waste, but there was no real policy, and the definition was very whimsical. It was very much, do good, manage your resources better, don't landfill or burn things. So that was it. So I came in talking about the issues that we had in BC, and one of the problems we had is a policy that BC has that many communities have, which is a waste hierarchy. So everybody has
Mm.
a waste hierarchy that talks about, reduce, reuse, recycle. But then in BC, it had recovery, which meant burn materials to recover energy from them, and then it had landfilling. So because of that policy in BC, uh, it turned out that the EPR programs, so the programs that were designed to recycle materials, they felt that they were stuck following that policy. So they were, recycling things primarily, but then whatever they couldn't recycle, they were deciding they were going to burn them. So primarily in cement kilns, they would convert them into refuse drive fuel or pellets and then burn them in cement kilns. So that was a problem because we know there's a lot of problem with the emissions that come from that, burning mixed garbage, a whole bunch of issues around burning waste. So we don't want to do that, and we definitely don't want to have our tax dollars going towards supporting that. So I went to the international group and I said, what what can we do about this? Like, this is a problem. We need to create our own hierarchy. We need a zero waste hierarchy. And it turned out that the people I was speaking with were, I would call, the founders of zero waste. They were, they've been in the industry for 20 years. And I just didn't even know it existed, but they've been in it for 20 years. And they ended up pulling out this document that they had, and they had a draft zero waste hierarchy that had never been adopted, had never been internationally shared, never used anywhere, but they had this draft. And I was like, oh my God, this is exactly what I need. This is exactly what we're looking for. We need to, we need this. So we spent a day refining it. So we had a group meeting with all the founders and all the organizations around zero waste at the conference, and we refined this and we adopted it within the Zero Waste International Alliance uh, in that conference. From then on, I took that back and forth between the Recycling Council of BC. We had them adopt it, we refined it, and now we're probably on about the fifth or sixth version where it's been improved, kind of tweaked a little bit to make sure that we're covering loopholes and such items like that.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, just there isn't any data behind this data, but what I've noticed myself is that the hierarchy triangle is more prevalent on the internet now. So I can Google it and I'll see it on like city websites for like zero waste policy coming in place. It's more well known, let's say, versus when you kind of first looked at it all those years ago, I guess. But it's good to see, yeah, cities, companies more aware of zero waste and implementing ideas of it into their policy. So no data on that, but I just yeah Google zero waste all the time, and I see it more and more like yeah going through these different pages and who's implementing what policy and so on. It's more accepted now than it was going back a few years, which is good to see. And on that note, can you tell us like kind of briefly why zero waste is so important?
Oh, briefly, hey. Yeah, so well, zero waste is extremely important because it addresses two different aspects. It addresses the environmental injustice that we see. So the wasting of resources where we're just polluting everything, right? We're polluting the air. If we're going to burn it, we're going to send if it's going to send it into the air. We're polluting the ground with the landfilling and the water, right? With dumping plastics and such into the oceans. So it's just an environmental injustice that it solves because it really addresses the waste system at its core, not just how to manage it after you've created it, but it talks about and works on how to prevent it. And we're not just talking about solid waste. A lot of people think of when we think of waste, we think of plastics. Yeah, definitely. We want to make sure we're getting rid of plastics out of our environment, but it also talks about the toxicity as well.
Mm.
So reducing and eliminating toxins from waste as well, or toxins from materials, not reintroducing toxins back into products, just avoiding that altogether. So it's super important. So on that side, it's also a social justice issue because we know primarily it's areas of with people that are a little bit more disadvantaged that are where we're situating these facilities that are polluting, where they're living in environments that are polluted. Um, that's a social justice issue. So it really addresses and tackles those two issues at its core and at the source, rather than just simply looking at how do we clean up this mess now that we've made it. It really wants to talk about how do we prevent making that in the first place and reducing it in that sense. And when you really look at it from that angle, if you were to, for instance, internalize all the costs of pollution and all the cost of all this waste into the products that we're purchasing and buying, if the zero waste is really the cheapest option,
Mm.
right? Because we're preventing all of that liability. There's extreme liability. For instance, I'll talk about there's a law in the United States, where if a landfill leaks, and we have that actually here as well. It's starting to become more prevalent here as well. If a landfill leaks, for instance, or there's pollution that's caused by disposing of your waste, they will go back and they will see who has been dumping into that facility,
Mm.
and they will put that bill back onto all those companies. And that's happened in the past. So it's important to make sure that you're not polluting and that you're managing your materials responsibly.
Yeah, zero waste means more than just like material. It's more, yeah, health. It's more like pollution focused as well, which is good to bring up because it isn't just the physical items you see day to day. It's this wider framework of how to be better for the environment and yeah, do things the right way. And you mentioned the business sense of zero waste. That's what I'm kind of looking at day to day is, it's more cost effective, it saves money, and companies see that more and more, I think, which is great as well. So you mentioned California earlier, so you recently went to Turkey, as well. Maybe tell us about that trip and what happened and why it was impactful.
Absolutely. So, um, to talk about that trip, I kind of have to go back a little bit and talk about. So, the United Nations has declared March 30th in 2018. United Nations declared March 30th International Zero Waste Day. So, that's fantastic. That's largely due to an organization that was founded by the First Lady of Turkey. She founded an organization called the Zero Waste Foundation. The Zero Waste Foundation has direct ties to United Nations and United Nations Environmental Protection as well. And they set up an organization called the Zero Waste Advisory Council, it's a branch of the United Nations. So this past year was their year to have a conference. They're finally ready to celebrate that development. And what they did was so this is a state-led organization. So it's the First Lady of Turkey. So it's directly related to their government, and their government has decided to embrace zero waste as their platform, which is fantastic in a lot of ways because it's elevating the terminology, it's elevating everything around it. And what they did was they decided to move zero waste forward on a grand scale. So how they did that was they decided to partner with about 130 different organizations during their conference. So they put this conference together within, I think it was like 6 months. It was a massive conference. I was sent there. They brought me there to participate in the conference. They brought organizations from around the world. I think there's over 200 participating organizations, 130 partners, or more than 130 partners. And when I was there, it was interesting in the sense that zero waste is very much a grassroots movement. So it's usually a lot of nonprofits, a lot of social enterprises, grassroots organizations. Never have I seen it on this scale by, for instance, a government or a state-led program or a state-led organization. So this was interesting and both unnerving because you never know which way it's going to go. So you don't know if they're going to go in there and just hijack the term zero waste and start going against all the policies that have been developed over the years. So that was a concern that we had as a international community. We were all concerned that this is what was going to be happening. But when we went there, actually, it was great. It was actually the organizations they brought in were, I would say, everyone that I talked to understood what zero waste was or what they were trying to do. They understood that it was about reducing pollution and reducing waste. Nobody promoted, no, not, well, I wouldn't say nobody, but 99% of the people were promoting proper zero waste and not promoting, for instance, burning of waste as
Mm.
a solution. I think there was one speaker that may have done that, but consistently throughout the conference, there was either a moderator or someone on a panel that would reject burning of waste as a
Mm.
solution to zero waste. And that came out about
Okay.
3 or 4 times in the panels that I was in. I was impressed because there's two things that usually happen at these conferences. Either they promote it and it's right out front and you're like, no, 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 this isn't right. This is not zero waste. It's definitely against zero international zero waste policies, or they don't mention it at all and they just sweep it under the rug.
Mm.
Um, so this one was great because it really just allowed people to freely talk about how incineration is not a solution and not part of a zero waste strategy. So that was phenomenal. So that was yeah, that was probably one of the best parts of it. The other parts were just the amount of people coming in and from different parts of the world talking about their zero waste issues and solutions that I hadn't ever seen before.
Awesome. Yeah, good to hear. Incineration was kind of pushed down more, which is good. We need to see more of that in Canada, I think, right now.
Yes.
Um, is there one highlight you could pick from your time there?
Yeah, I think there's a couple highlights. So one particular was during one of the I think it was a second panel or second discussions presentations. Her name was Ambly from Gaia, so Global Alliance for Internet for Incineration Alternatives. So she was on stage and she talked about the defining zero waste as if it wasn't already defined. So that was the panel, but she came out first speaker. She put up the definition of zero waste on these massive screens. There's like four of them in the room. She put up the zero waste hierarchy on her slides and she went in and talked about how there is an internationally accepted definition of zero waste. There is a hierarchy of zero waste, and incineration is considered unacceptable as a zero waste strategy. To me, that was a highlight because this was an international conference or forum. There were delegates from all around the world to see this, and it was great. And then to top that off, the moderator actually confirmed her or validated her by agreeing and saying yes, how incineration is not part of a zero waste strategy. So that was fantastic. Great, great highlight of the conference.
I guess one question here too is that there's a lot of forums that happen like this, where there's lots of talk, but then little to no action, like we've seen with COP recently. Big event, lots of countries coming together. The outcome doesn't kind of justify the means in a way. There's yeah, all this talk, but then what happens next is the question that's on people's minds, and people, yeah, don't see the actions happening as they would like. So, in the example of this forum, what's next, and what's the kind of future of zero waste internationally? Is there more forums planned? Like, yeah, what's the kind of takeaway from this that will say, yes, we're on the right direction here?
Right. So that's it's a great point to make because yeah, we see that all the time, right? You have conference, a lot of talk, nothing happening. Um, for this one, it is kind of like what's the next step? What's going to happen? So they had announced that they are definitely wanting to do this next year, the same forum next year. They want to be 2 to 3 times bigger, which to me would be massive because I think there was 2,000. I think there was no maybe 1,000 attendees at this conference. So they wanted to make it 2 to 3 times bigger. And they had all these organizations signing MOUs that talked about international cooperation in terms of the activities that we're doing. So now what they're doing is they're asking each one of those organizations to come up with a project that they want to implement within their own organization or country or region that they can then execute over the next year, next 2 years, next 3 years. And the way I see it is if they want this conference to be 2 to 3 times bigger next year, they want something to show for it. So they're
Mm.
going to want to have stories to tell about how what they started in terms of Turkey, in terms of bringing everybody together on this platform. What they started, they want to show that there's been results. And part of our MOU, part of our cooperation is sharing those results and make sure we're measuring it and sharing it. So I do believe that this will result in tangible action, which is exciting for me, and everyone's kind of excited about this.
Yeah, great. Can we host it one time, do you think?
Yes,
Maybe in the
that'd be
future.
fun.
Yeah.
That'd be fantastic. We did talk about moving around. So next year is going to be, they said, going to be back in Turkey and or in Istanbul, and they said they will then look at what other venues they can put it on at. So yeah, so we are a partner. So there's no, it's not out of the realm of possibility that we would be hosting it.
Great. Yeah, I'll be there when that happens. Yeah, awesome. Just kind of closing off kind of this questioning. So bringing it back to Canada, why is it important to be involved in these discussions? And then for Canada, like what's next? What can we kind of see more or do more? Yeah, at home to kind of like, get more involved in these discussions. And yeah, why is it important to be in them in the first place?
For sure. So attending that conference like that, the importance is it's better to be on the inside than outside. So you want
Yeah.
to be in, you want to be influencing. And for instance, I'll give you an example of one kind of downside to the conference. So there's the upsides. There's also not without its downsides. So one downside was they didn't recognize the movement that had been created ahead of their own organization. So we want to make sure that they're valuing the work that had been done up until that point, the policies that had been created already, the definition, those types of things, really making sure that those stick and that they're following those messages. So that's important and why it was important for us to be there. The second is in their closing remarks, they had their industry or their Ministry of Energy do a presentation or a speech, and his speech started off by talking about how they're burning 10% of their waste in Turkey, and he was kind of we weren't sure if he was bragging about it or just stating a fact, but it felt a little bit like bragging. But then he also talked about other forms of energy. So he talked about wind, solar, geothermal, so those types of energies. So being in that room, being there, make sure that they get their messaging straight and their direction on track. So, letting them know that, hey, energy, weight burning energy. Waste energy is not a zero waste strategy. You want to be a zero waste nation. You need to move away from that. Not just we recommend it, you need to move
Mm.
away from that. You need to start focusing on, yeah, solar, wind, great, geothermal, great. Now, in Canada, why it's important for us here and what we can do is we need to start talking with our elected officials, and we need to make sure that Canada understands that zero waste is a growing movement and it's a giant community, and that Canada needs to jump on board and start to communicate with those organizations. Because I know that Zero Waste Canada and myself, we've tried to reach out to the Canadian government or federal government on multiple occasions to have discussions with them. Sometimes it works in terms of correcting some of the statements they put out around, for instance, incineration, things like
Mm.
that.
Yeah.
But they have a zero waste committee or a zero waste department, and never have we ever been able to get a response from them to say, hey, like, no, you're in this space, let's talk. So that's important. We want to make sure we are in those rooms, helping them make those decisions and letting them know these policies already exist. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. I always say that the time for developing the big policies are over. We need to start implementing the policies that we have. So we've
Yeah.
got these policies in place, we've got the hierarchy, we've got the definition. We need to start implementing the actions behind it now. So that's where we are. That's what Turkey was all about. It talked about action, action, action. That's where we want to be. We don't want to spend the next 10 years trying to talk about more policy. Let's take action.
You mentioned, yeah, at the start of this podcast that has grassroots, and I think like we're seeing that in Canada. There's lots of things happening at kind of small levels, lots of great things going on that are scaling up, but then we need more cohesion internally to kind of, go to the next level. So there's lots of great things going on, but yeah, it's kind of a patchwork, let's say, right now. There's a scope to be more what's the words? Yeah, more large scale with it across the country, but yeah, it's difficult to get that cohesion in place sometimes, and hopefully, yeah, there's a pathway there with the government support too.
Yeah.
We'll see.
A good friend of mine once said that it's not about speaking to the choir, it's about having the choir sing in harmony,
Yeah.
right?
No.
So we've got a lot of organizations across Canada, like you said, that are all working on some fantastic things.
Yeah.
They're just not all in sync or speaking in harmony. So
Mm.
that's what we need to do. And in a lot of ways, so Zero Waste Canada has our certification program. So a lot of ways that's what that tries to do is create that baseline set of policies for organizations going through those programs, the foundational work that needs to be done to get everybody kind of on the same page with what direction they want to go into, what direction they want to go in when it comes to zero waste and waste management.
That's a good kind of segue there to the last question. So yeah, what can people listening to this who are involved in zero waste want to learn more? What can they do to get involved?
First thing, I would say take the zero waste fundamentals course. That's a lot of work has gone into that. It's a real easy way to get up to speed on zero waste. It's 5 hours, automated, self-paced, low cost. I always say take that course. It'll get you going. Want to go further, there's the associate's course. But then start looking at the policies around the hierarchy, really get to know what the hierarchy is all about. It's not just an infographic. A lot of people know it from the infographic, like you mentioned online. It's like a 9-page document that talks about guiding principles, definition,
Mm.
different levels within the hierarchy, a whole list of definitions. And then start to get engaged with your local community once you have that information. Start to do something with it. Connect with an environmental group and help them out. Connect with your local politicians or your local municipalities and wherever you can. Just start applying what you've learned in those courses, and then go get yourself certified if you're an organization, right? If you're an organization, go through the certification program and be recognized for all the work and achievements that you do.
Yeah, awesome. Lots of great takeaways there. One thing to add is that I think, yeah, companies who, yeah, more and more are looking at zero waste policies and frameworks. And I think from my experience, companies also want to see certifications when hiring. So I think there's jobs out there that will look at certifications and, courses as yeah, huge plus points to help them economically and achieving their aims of reducing their waste. So I think there's benefits to learn more and then pursue careers in this space too, like I've done. So yeah, great takeaways there. Thanks, Jamie, for yeah talking through this, and yeah, we'll chat again soon, I'm pretty sure.
Sounds good. Thanks, Alistair.